Welcome you lot to Match Catch Media. We're here again today inside to talk about rig choice. It's more about sort of float choice to start with, really. This time of year, like I said, at the time I film with this, it's absolutely freezing. Everything's frozen over. So we thought we'd come inside and do a little bit of a feature on this today. Most of my fishing this time of year, float choice wise, it's all kind of slim bodied for minimal resistance kind of fishing. So a lot of it is for silvers and F1s, so maggot rigs, pellet rigs, that kind of thing. So it's all very, very kind of similar from that perspective. The only thing that changes really is mainly the size of the float, depending on what kind of depth of water you're fishing in. The material of the float itself, so the stem, carbon float for some of the fishing that I'm doing. If I want bait falling through the water and I want it to kind of, as the float sort of goes in, I want the carbon stem to follow the hook bait. It goes down and it swings in like that. So that's the carbon stems for that kind of work. And then for like my F1 pellet fishing, if I'm, I only want the fall in the bottom kind of 18 inches of the rig, and especially if there's a bit of a toe in the water or it's a bit windier, I just want that wire stem so that you've got complete stability in the rig. It just means you get that nice easy sort of dink as the float goes down, as long as it's darted down nicely, and you just get that bite indication that's really good, really stable, still rig, which is the kind of thing that you need to get a few more fish in your net this time of year. So I'm going to start with the sort of the main pattern of float that I use for most of my fishing, the kind of go-to really. So like I said before, this is a very slim style kind of float with a carbon stem. And the bristle is 1.5 mil hollow. So this is kind of my go-to really. This works really well in most situations. I tend to use 0.3 of a gram and 0.4 of a gram floats. 0.3 of a gram in around about 3.5 foot of water. 0.4 of a gram in 4 to 5 foot of water, or 3.5 to 5 foot if it's, if it's a little bit, even in 3 foot of water, to be fair. If it's a little bit sort of toey and horrible, then I might use something a little bit heavier just to keep the bait still on the bottom. But mainly 0.3 of a gram, which is about 4x12s, and 0.4 of a gram, which is about 4x14s. Anything deeper than kind of 5.5 foot, I'm going up to 0.5 of a gram or even a little bit more. Okay, so 4x16s or even heavier than that. Especially at deep water venues, when you're fishing for skimmers and you can lie a bit of line on the bottom, that's really, really useful. But like I said, generally, this is the kind of pattern that is my go-to. This is where I'll start off, generally speaking. The beauty about a profile of float like this is that it's really, really good for maggots and also for pellet fishing as well, which again is, the majority of what I'm doing this time of year on matches. Sometimes, even when it's dotted down like to a pimple, with it being a 1.5 mil bristle, if you're fishing this kind of rig with maggots, such as a single maggot, for example, or if even as a pellet rig and the fish are really slyly biting, so when you pick that pellet up off the bottom and they barely move away with it, you've still got that 1.5 mil bristle even dotted down, and it does, as long as it's shotted properly, it should show it up. But sometimes I want something that's even more finesse, even more sort of dinky, and it just gives me that slightly better, more confident, less resistance bite indication. So what I choose for that is, again, it's exactly the same profile float. There's two of them here on this one. I use everything else is the same, so I either use a carbon stem or a wire stem, mainly carbon for this one. The body again is still nice and slimline, as you would see. The only difference here is, it still is a hollow tip as well, but this is a 1.2 millimeter bristle tip, so it's really, really fine. These are floats I actually make myself. You can buy them now, to be fair. Lots of really, really good float makers out there. At MAP as well, we're working on a really, really good new pole float range, so keep an eye out for that, because obviously when I get hands on them, they'll be coming to you in a video as well. But yeah, I like that 1.2 mil bristle. This time of year when the fish barely moves, you can have you can have 3 mil of that bristle showing, and it will still bang absolutely bury, even though the fish has barely moved. Where the 1.5 mil bristle, you don't necessarily get that bury bite. It just gives you that little bit of bit of a twitch, and if you're not focused or if you're not watching properly, that's something you might miss, or you might be a bit unsure. And obviously what last thing you want to do this time of year especially is foul hook a fish or anything like that if you're striking at false indications. So that's the kind of change that I make. Everything else on the rigs is exactly the same, and I'll go through that in a kind of a separate video, but that's the biggest thing for me really in terms of pole float choice for this time of year. Like I said, the 1.5mm bristle for most of the stuff that I'm doing, but then I do fine down on those really difficult days to a 1.2mm bristle as well, you know, even with F1s, even with pellets. But obviously that means that they're really good as well for fishing single maggot, double maggot, or maggot and pinky. So there we go, just a nice little video as to why I choose those particular two styles of float for this time of year. Like I said, that is the most of the body of my fishing that I do. Obviously I change it up a little bit for things like dobbing bread. I use a different pattern for that, although the same pattern like this, even lighter, like a 4x10s, maybe a 4x12s, that can be just as good as well, but it depends on the wind and what kind of depth I'm fishing in. And obviously like mudline, not so much this time of year, but like again, some venues, Old Huff is a good example of it, where they do live up against the sort of the features really. So if I've got, you know, if I can get kind of 2.5 foot plus against a feature, even for proper carp at this time of year, I'll still use like that bit more of a rugby ball style float with a bit of a slightly bigger bristle. You know, a 2mm bristle or a 2.5mm bristle, and I'll change it up a little bit for that. But you'll get to see some of those rigs in the upcoming videos and this little mini series of your ultimate rig guide. Okay, thanks very much for watching. Please don't forget to hit like and subscribe on the YouTube channel. It's completely free, it's going to stay free, and it really helps us out. We do the videos hopefully to give you a bit of an insight and to help you enjoy your fishing a little bit more. See you on the back very soon. Take care.